Hey everyone, welcome to the 7th lesson of the Getting Started with Motion Graphics course here for Tuts Plus. My name is Vincent Nguyen, and today we're going to be talking about lower thirds, how to build them, and how to animate and render them for, applying them in post-production and such like that. So in After Effects here, let's take a look at what we're going to be creating today. So just a simple lower third, we're going to be taking a look at how to animate these. And maybe perhaps create another style of lower thirds. There are plenty of ways to create lower thirds. There's different styles for different purposes and such like that. So without further ado, in After Effects, let's go ahead and create a new composition. And we're going to call this lower thirds. And I'm going to make mine 12 seconds long. Your lower thirds shouldn't be anything longer than maybe 20 seconds or so. You want things to be fairly quickly, but long enough for people to be able to read it. And we're going to hit OK. So now we have a blank composition here. Alright, now let's go ahead and create a background layer. And I'm creating a background layer so we have a nice background so that we can kind of visually see what our lower thirds will look like once applied to some footage. Because if we create our lower thirds on transparent pixels, you can't very visually see what the lower thirds will look like when it's on color. So the best way is to create a background layer, and then we can apply a ramp. And make it a radial ramp, and we can just adjust the color. And this is nothing really important. This is just to, again, to visually see what it'll look like on color rather than just plain transparent pixels. So we just have a simple gradient background, very, very subtle, but it should sell the effect enough. And let's go ahead and take a look at our lower thirds. So in this demonstration, for now, we're going to be creating this lower third right here. Kind of a basic, somewhat of a glossy, shiny, new style lower thirds. And once again, there are tons and tons of different styles of lower thirds depending on the purpose of your lower thirds. So first off, let's go ahead and select our pen tool. And for this particular lower thirds, I'm going to be creating the lower third using shape layers rather than mask layers and stuff like that. And of course, this is all just personal preference. You guys do remember the difference between mask and shape layers. So I'm going to draw a nice dot right here. And I'm going to hold down the shift key and just click further away so we can create a nice straight edge. And then I'm going to click maybe up here or so. And then go ahead and hold down shift again and just finish off the shape. And we're going to call this bar. And this is going to be our main bar. And of course you can apply some transformation to this. Maybe if it's too thick for you, you can just decrease it a little bit. Maybe make it a little bit wider if you want. So we just have this nice bar here and just line it up in place. And now we can start messing around with the color here. So I don't want to apply a fill to it. I want to apply a gradient to it. So let's go ahead and apply a ramp effect to the bar right here. And we can't use layer styles because these are shape layers. So we're going to be forced to use the ramp effect. And maybe I'm going to make this one a nice orange color. And then this one can be a nicer red color. And then we can adjust the points here. Maybe something like that. And then we can duplicate this shape layer. And then we're going to make it white. And this is going to be our gloss layer. So we're going to call this gloss. And because this is a shape layer, we can't apply any mask to it. So if we want to mask the thing out, let's apply a linear wipe effect, a very handy transition effect. We can apply it to the gloss layer. Set the wipe angle to 0 degrees. And then we can just play around with the transition completion. And you can see it kind of cuts off half of the layer right here, the gloss layer. And then we can just hit T on the keyboard and tone down the opacity. So we get this nice kind of gloss layer. I'm going to duplicate the bottom bar one more time. And this is going to be called the top bar. Drag it underneath the bar layer. And we can just kind of move it up a little bit. And just scale it down. And notice how it's kind of scaling kind of weird because our anchor point is kind of set right here. So we can just set the anchor point maybe to the middle. And then we can actually move the lower thirds maybe around here. to kind of create that title plate or title spot. And then we can adjust the color to give it some more variation once again. Maybe make this one a little bit more orange. Just to have some variation. And we want to apply some nice drop shadows to this thing. So let's go ahead and apply a drop shadow. And just drag it into the top bar. We can set the angle to 180 degrees. And maybe feather it out a little bit. And then we can copy this and paste it into the larger bar. And then we can decrease the distance, increase the softness a little bit, and decrease the opacity. Just so we have a very subtle drop shadow. And it does make a big difference if we just shut off the drop shadow here. You can see that it looks very flat, very plain. We want to give it some depth. So now that we have that done, let's go ahead and take a look at how to animate this thing. There are actually several ways to animate this. But for this demonstration, I'm going to go ahead and animate these two bars individually. Something a little bit different than what I did before. So I'm going to parent the gloss position to the bar position so they all link up together. So I'm going to hold down Alt or Option on the keyboard and just pick up the position of the gloss to the position of the bar. So now whenever I move the bar, the gloss follows it, as you can see here. So now that that's been done, let's go ahead and bring up the position for all the layers. And let's start maybe around 2 seconds in. See how that works out. And then we can hit a keyframe stopwatch for all the positions. And then we're going to move back in time. And we're just going to push everything back. So if we play this back, you can see that's kind of slow, so let's go ahead and speed this thing up. We're going to move it maybe halfway. And as you can see, that looks very, very boring. So let's go ahead and offset these things. Let's go ahead and make the larger one come in first. So we're going to... Actually, we don't even need to animate the gloss layer because it's parented to our larger bar. So we can close the gloss. And let's go ahead and make the larger bar animate in first. And then we're going to offset that with the top bar. So first the large bar comes in, and then the second bar is going to come in. And that's just going to give us some variation. And then we can play around with these, and then maybe make it a little bit faster. Let's just take a look. So as you can see, not very exciting, very plain, but it is actually getting there. Once again, we can try to easy ease these keyframes here by selecting these keyframes and going to Animation, Keyframe Assistant, Easy Ease, or hit F9. So Animation, Keyframe Assistant, Easy Ease. And this is going to ease our lower thirds into the final position a little bit nicer. So a little bit better, but we can actually do more by actually going into the graph editor and kind of giving it that nice swinging effect. So we want our lower thirds to kind of swing into place, and then we want it to slowly, gradually move down. So we can just increase this handout right here. And that's going to create a nice little bump right here. It's going to swing our lower thirds in and slowly smooth into place. So we can do that for the main bar as well. Make sure that your parameter, position parameter is selected, and just go ahead and pull the bar. And you're going to see that we have a lot more variation in the kind of position movement now. That is a lot more exciting with a lot more energy. So now with that being said, let's go ahead and set up our text layer. We can actually get the text tool here, type in our text. I'm going to call this one Vincent Win. And then we can actually position this in the center or however we want. We can scale this thing up. Set that there. And then we can duplicate this text. drag it up to the top bar, and then we can scale this thing down. Maybe call this one instructor. And we can just line this one up as well. So once you have everything lined up in approximately the same place that you want everything to be in, we can apply a drop shadow. And because this is a drop shadow on the lower third, I'm going to make it a little bit sharper and not as soft. So I'm going to set the distance to about 4. Direction about 180. And then we can decrease the opacity to maybe about 30. Just so we have this very, very subtle dark area behind the text, but it just makes the text a lot easier to read if we kind of have that nice backdrop or drop shadow to the text. So now that we had that set up, let's quickly animate this thing. And I'm just going to do a simple fade on for now. So I'm going to hit on T on the keyboard to bring up the opacity parameters, and then I'm going to set the keyframe right here, set to 0, and then at the final position, maybe around here, right before it hits the final position, we're just going to fade it in. And then the instructor kind of fades in at this point, so we're going to hit a keyframe at 100% here. And then once it's kind of gone, we're going to set it at 0. And once again, we're going to easy ease these keyframes. Hit F9 or keyframe assistant, easy ease. And let's just do a quick RAM preview. So just like that, you have your quick, nice lower thirds. Unfortunately, we don't have time to cover another type of style of lower thirds, but of course there are many, many other styles, and they're actually very, very easy to create. You can create them in Illustrator, Photoshop, whatever you want, bring it to After Effects to animate. So very quickly, let's go ahead and take a look at how we can render this thing with the alpha channel so we can bring it into Final Cut Premiere. Because you do not want to be, using After Effects to re-render your lower thirds all the time, over and over again, if you're going to be using the same ones over and over again. So if you think that you're going to be using your lower thirds in a lot of your videos, a lot of your productions, you may just want to render it out once with an alpha channel and just keep on reusing it in your video editor, because I'm pretty sure you're not going to be editing, your film in After Effects. So remember, we don't have an alpha channel anymore. We actually have a background layer, and we created that background layer so we can kind of see what it'll look like with our background layer. So let's go ahead and turn off the background layer. And you can see that now we have an alpha channel, and this checkerboard pattern right here is going to be where your video footage is going to be when you apply your lower thirds. So now that we have that alpha channel set, let's go ahead and set up the render queue. So once you're done with your lower thirds, once you're ready to render, we can go to Composition, Make a Movie. It's going to bring up the render queue, and under the output module, you're going to get all these settings. Now, there are actually many, many formats that you can choose from that will give you an alpha channel, but my favorite one with the best compression would probably be QuickTime. And go to the format, and under video codec, I'm going to select animation. Quality at 91% is fine. It's only a lower third. Hit OK. And the most important part is to select channels RGB plus alpha. Now by default it's on RGB, which is just going to render out the red, green, and blue channels, or the color channels. But if you want to retain that alpha channel, you need to make sure that you select RGB plus the alpha channel, and then hit OK. And then you can select your output destination and just render. So really quickly, that was just how to create a very basic lower thirds. Of course, there are many, many more styles that you can create and animate and use. You can do it in Photoshop, Illustrator. But this is just a really quick tutorial on how to create a basic lower thirds, the basic of kind of animating it and the process that needs to go through your mind. We also took a look at how to quickly set up an alpha channel and render a lower third with an alpha channel so that we can reuse it easily in your video editor of choice. So in the next video tutorial, we're going to be talking about audio synchronization, the importance of audio synchronization, as well as a wave forward marker. So definitely can't wait for that. If you guys have any further questions, don't hesitate to leave in the forums. I'll get to them as soon as I can. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this video tutorial. My name is Vincent Nguyen, and I'll see you guys in the next video lesson. Bye guys.